Welcome to this week's Oregon Minute. This week we are interviewing Elise Cruz, village planner, about affordable housing in the village. So, Elise, you've been village planner for around 9 months now, is that correct?
That's right. I started around the end of October.
And so how does it feel to have been in the village for that long?
Well, it's been really great to be home. I grew up in the Fitchburg area but went to the Oregon schools, and so it's been great to be home, and this is really my first time living in the village since I was a toddler, so it's been really great to be able to walk to work and get back to the community that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm. So when we first covered your role, your coming back to the village as planner, you had said that one of your focuses was to be affordable housing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, that was one of my main priorities with starting this position at the village, which had never existed before. Dane County is becoming such a popular area to live, and it's becoming really difficult for even professional working people to find a home to live in, and really feel strongly that if somebody wants to live in Oregon and stay in Oregon, there should be a place that's affordable for them to live. So really wanted to make sure that was a priority in my first couple years here.
Mm-hmm. And so last year there was the state mandated affordable housing report that came out now that the village has surpassed 10,000 people.
That's right.
I remember you bringing that up at previous board meetings. What about that report did you find the most striking?
I remember there was one statistic when talking about the average price of an owner-occupied home here, and then kind of the average median income, and it said 1 out of every 4 households in Dane County could not afford to live in Oregon. That was just so striking to feel that, I think Oregon got its start as a really blue-collar, very accessible place for people to live that, maybe worked in Madison but wanted to live out of the city, and it's becoming a lot more difficult to live here, a lot more expensive. So that was a big eye-opener for me.
And so how does one define affordable housing?
It has a lot of different definitions, kind of depending on who you're asking, whether it's a state or federal agency or nonprofit, but typically we look at AMI, area median income, and take some percentage of that. So, in Dane County, the area median income is around $75,000 or so, and then we take a percentage of that. So maybe affordable housing is 30 to 50% of AMI or 30 to 80% of AMI. Typically, it really means anything that's less than market rate. So anything that is kind of falling within more of a workforce range, so a lot of people that are still working but maybe not making quite that the median income when they can afford the average price. But it doesn't always mean public housing. I think that's one point a lot of people get confused when they hear affordable housing. They think Section 8, kind of state or county-owned affordable Section 8 public housing, and it's actually a whole wide category that includes a whole range of prices for different types of families.
So based on the findings of this report, assuming you've had a really good chance to examine it, what demographics have you seen? What demographics are most affected by this issue in the village?
I think we really see a lot of need with our seniors. There's a lot of people that are on fixed incomes and have raised their families in the village, and now they have a fixed income in their retirement, and they see that their property taxes continue to go up a little bit each year, and it just becomes more expensive to live in town. They may not want to maintain their yard and everything forever, and so they're looking for a place to be able to stay within the community that they really love and feel a part of, but they need to find something that's affordable for their income. Another category of people that we have seen that there's a growing need for are single parent households with children, and especially they're really looking for around like a 3-bedroom unit, and even with some of our newer developments with some apartments, there haven't been as many 3-bedroom units as we would hope to see to help meet that gap for those families.
But as far as I understand, there have been a couple of conceptual plans that have come through the Planning Commission one from Habitat for Humanity and another one from Lakestone Properties that has a potential senior housing component. Is that correct?
That's right.
So tell us briefly about the Habitat for Humanity conceptual plan and what would that do, or how would that help get more residents into the village of Oregon?
Sure. The Habitat project is really unique in that the Habitat model is actually an owner-occupied home. So in this case, they're looking at redeveloping 769 Janesville, which is right across the street from Wisco Industries. It's about a 1.3 acre site, but they're looking to demolish one small cottage that's on the site, leave the larger home, and do some kind of cul-de-sac that would have about 10 duplexes on the site, so 5 units, 5 buildings with 10 units total, have an area for children to play, all that, but those would be owner-occupied duplexes, so it would exist kind of as a condo association where they'd be responsible for maintaining the street and plowing and mowing and everything, but the families would actually own their home. Would have a garage and a basement and a backyard, and the Habitat model is really unique in that it helps limit the mortgage payments for families that wouldn't typically be able to afford a home in Dane County, so it keeps them at around 30% or so of their income level, which is what's considered affordable and not housing burdened. But that would bring, potentially 10 new families into the village, or maybe families that are already living within the village and renting, but looking for an opportunity to own their own home.
That sounds. And as far as I understand, there was a neighborhood informational session Monday, July 27th.
Mm-hmm.
What were some, and it was about this development. What were some things or some questions the public had about the development?
Yeah, at the meeting on Monday night, we heard from a couple neighbors and also just a couple interested citizens that live around the village. I think they were a little concerned about just adding more traffic to Janesville Street. There was a little bit of concern about just making sure that the yards and everything were sufficient for families, making sure there was enough room for children to play safely outside. And then also it's a site that it does slope a little bit away from the road, so there were some concerns about stormwater and flooding, and just wondering what Habitat's plan was to make sure that site was safe and there weren't recurring flooding issues there.
And so there's another meeting tonight, Wednesday, July 29th, at the time of filming this episode, about the Lakestone Properties conceptual plan. Can you tell us a little bit about what that plan encompasses?
Sure. So that's over on the 900 block of Janesville Street, so a little bit further east than the Habitat site. It's right across from the Quick Trip on Janesville Street. But that's about a 12.5 acre site, 3 different parcels put together. It's a really huge site. It goes all the way from Janesville almost to Park Street where the dog park is. But they're looking at doing 3 or 4 buildings that would hold about 135 to 140 units. Those would also be affordable. They're looking right now at maybe having one of those buildings dedicated for senior affordable housing, and that would also have elements in the design that would be accessible to make sure that people who are in wheelchairs or walkers are able to get in and out of the shower and get in and out of around their unit easily. But that would be a multifamily building similar to what they've built at Jefferson Crossing right downtown, where it's 3 stories. It has underground parking, really nice front where it's got balconies for each family, a shared amenity space with a green space, and maybe a picnic area, fitness room, things like that. But that would be have access both on Janesville Street as well as a back access point on Perry Parkway to help alleviate some of the traffic issues with everybody falling in and out of one access point.
So we know what makes the Habitat for Humanity conceptual plan affordable, just the unique model that comes with that. What makes the Lakestone Properties development affordable?
So they're looking at doing a couple of different financing options that in combination would help kind of keep the rents affordable for these different units. So One of those options is a WEDA grant, the Wisconsin Housing Economic Development Authority. They help support affordable developments with grants each year, so I know they're planning on applying for that. This parcel, and actually the Habitat parcel as well, is within our TIF district, Tax Increment Financing District number 4. So that it provides an opportunity for developers to ask essentially for a grant from the village that takes the pre-development tax value and the post-development tax value, sort of borrows on that increase for a couple of years. So rather than the village getting that increased tax revenue, kind of provide it back each year to the developer as a grant as the tax value of that parcel goes up as construction is completed. So that's another way that can kind of help meet the gap to, because the cost of construction for a market rate unit and affordable unit is the same. So there has to be another element of financing to help make the numbers work and make it somewhat profitable. No one's getting rich off affordable housing, but it's still, the numbers have to work, otherwise the projects wouldn't get built.
Can you tell us a little bit about the potential senior housing development that'll go with the Lakestone Properties plan?
Yeah, so it's not for certain yet that they will develop specific affordable housing for seniors, but I know that's one element that they're looking at. It would look just the same as the other multifamily buildings on the site, but again, it would have some element in the design, the architecture of the building, some accessible features, probably wider hallways, low or no transitions between carpeted and tiled areas, different things that will help make living in the units a lot easier for people that may have reduced mobility.
So now, as we go through the informational sessions and the developers gather feedback from the public, what is the next step for each conceptual plan?
Sure. So right now these projects are kind of running parallel. So right now they're in the conceptual stage. That's where we're getting the feedback from Planning Commission, the board, and the public through these outdoor meetings. And then they'll take the next couple of weeks to digest that feedback, make any revisions to their plan. They may come back at the September Planning Commission meeting with an updated concept plan just to kind of let them know how they've incorporated the comments so far. And then we're planning for October to be the comprehensive plan amendment process. So that will be for both of the properties. They will require a comp plan amendment. And then depending on where the site plan is, it could be as soon as that night in October or later in the fall that we'll have the rezoning and a site plan review. And those are all public processes. Right now we're meeting via Zoom, but regardless of how we meet, we'll make sure that those public hearings are noticed in the paper and then as well on our other media channels. So if people want to participate in the Zoom meeting, for example, they'll have the information to log in, ask questions, and make sure that any comments that they have about the project are incorporated at those public meetings.
So then at what point would the commission be ready to recommend it to the board, to the village board for approval?
Well, again, there are a couple steps to go through, but the comp plan, it's the Planning Commission actually controls that. So as soon as the October meeting, they could actually approve the comp plan amendment. But then there's what we call the GDP and SIP. So General Development Plan is sort of a rezoning, and then an SIP, Specific Implementation Plan, is sort of like a site plan. So that's when you actually get into the details of where are the dumpsters located and how does the parking flow work and what does the facade of the building look like and all those small details. So that could be done as soon as that October meeting, as soon as the comp plan is amended. It could be the next item on the agenda. But realistically, it could be a couple meetings later, just depending on how soon these developers are ready to go. I think the Lakestone project will be a little bit more ready to go with their site plan than Habitat, but we're anticipating that construction for both of these projects wouldn't start any sooner than probably spring of 2021.
Well, awesome, Elise. Is there anything else that I missed that you feel like is worth mentioning here?
So one interesting point of information with regards to just understanding why affordable housing is needed is that income levels have stayed relatively the same over the last 30 years, but housing prices have increased exponentially since then. And there was recently a study that was done that was looking at what would you have to be earning per hour to afford kind of the average 2-bedroom apartment in any given state. And in Wisconsin, you'd have to be earning about $17.25 an hour, working full-time to afford the average 2-bedroom apartment. That's assuming you're living by yourself, that you don't have another partner or roommate that's living with you to help with the rent. But that was really eye-opening, because right now, of course, our minimum wage is $7.25, so that's $10 less per hour. And I think there's a lot of people that, they're already either working or living in Oregon, that work at our schools, work at our gas stations, work at the grocery store, that either are struggling to live here, or they live further away and they're commuting further than they'd like to get to work or get up to Madison or be near the community that they want to be a part of. So that's one reason that I think affordable housing now more than ever is really needed.
And then you have, it's like students who graduate college, say from the University of Madison, and they have however much in student loan debt, and they're just trying to make ends meet. I remember talking to educators and how they're unable to live in the village because of their salary versus what housing costs are. And yeah, so it sounds like, though, these developments are a step in the right direction to help people find, options and everything, but it also sounds like there's still a lot to be done.
Right, it's kind of the laws of supply and demand. I mean, 1 out of every 3 people moving to Wisconsin is moving to Dane County. We're a really desirable place to live. There's a lot of great jobs, a lot of education opportunities, and there's got to be somewhere for all those people to go. So as we create more supply, hopefully the demand decreases a little bit, which will help ease some of the prices. But it's a delicate balance that we're always trying to find between providing housing opportunities for people that live here and want to live here, and also maintaining the small town character and historic charm and the quality of life that brought a lot of people here in the first place. So we want to make sure that with each development that we do, we don't lose what's really unique and important about Oregon.
Thank you for watching today's episode of the Oregon Minute. Tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m.